Hey, maybe we should get Juan Soto to pay for the new stadium. Coming at you. Coming at you.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Raise Rewind with Bell Bushman and Drew.
Jensen. That is into center field. Here comes Kiermaier. Phillips has tied the game. Arose Arena coming around. Throw home. Now he stumbles. But the ball gets away. Tampa Bay wins it. Brett Phillips, Game 4 hero.
The sickest Tampa Bay Rays podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Welcome, everybody. It is the Sick Podcast, Raise Rewind. We are back. It is myself and Drew. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back in. It is the Sick Podcast Network presenting Raise Rewind. Of course, you can find us at the Sick Podcast, Raise Rewind, at our YouTube page. Subscribe and notification bells. Hit them. Subscribe, because we need them. And we haven't done this in a while. And ever since we did our last show, things have happened. And it seems like we're in a time warp with stadium stuff. And people are getting paid almost $800 million to play baseball. And, hey, the Rays got a catcher. Drew, how do you feel about Danny Jensen becoming the Rays' new starting catcher?
Yeah, if you would have asked me 2 seasons ago, I would have been very excited.
Over the moon for that?
Over the moon. Yeah, I mean, I think it's I'm optimistic.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, the bar is so low.
Yes,
the
very,
bar is so
very
low.
low. Very,
If
very
he's, he's a career 100 or WRC plus hitter, which is he's league average. For his career, he's had some years better. I know, like I mentioned a couple years ago, he was, one of the better hitting catchers in baseball with the Blue Jays. If he's a league average hitter, if we get a career league average hitter to be a league average hitter this year, at the catcher position, I will more than happily take that, especially if it's more, it comes from more of a power than maybe an average, which
If he turns out to be a Travis d'Arnaud, then it's a steal. It's a steal.
Yeah. I'm not the biggest expert on Danny Jensen. From what I've read, he can block very well. He's a great blocking catcher, but he doesn't add anything in the run prevention game, which I've always had this feeling watching Rays games over the last couple of years that they can't stop anybody. So I'm a little disappointed that they weren't able to snag a catcher that is a little bit more of a defender with the run game, because it felt like a lot of times this past season, and even certainly in years prior with the roulette of catchers we've had, it feels like sometimes there are games where just guys get on and then it's just an automatic. Yeah, it's just an automatic. I mean, there's just no throw. There's just no chance of getting them. And so I'm somewhat disappointed that it seems like based off his stats, doesn't really add much in the run prevention department. But again, if he's a league average hitter, it will feel much more passable and honestly much more watchable than what we've gotten with Alex Jackson and others in the past. And to make Ben Wardfed I would imagine Danny Jensen's a full-time catcher. I know that's obviously Wardfed's on the stronger side of the platoon, being a lefty, but I would imagine Danny Jensen's in there most days. And thankfully he could be even, I don't know if they would do this, but he's even a guy they could potentially DH.
So I'm glad that you brought the DH thing. And this is something I brought up last night. I was a guest on a podcast and we were talking about, we're probably getting off topic or whatever, but they were talking about upcoming free agents, about what the Rays are going to do. And right now, I think as Rays fans, we don't really know what they're going to be doing in the offseason, because it's been kind of like a cloud of, I wouldn't say mistrust, but just cloud of uncertainty of what they're going to be doing and what they're going to be doing with payroll and who they may be trading, because the winter meetings are coming up and, spring training is coming up in the next couple of months. And, there's lots of things that are happening right now. And a couple of things that we talked about on this podcast was, who could they maybe snag? Who could maybe they could bring in? And I brought up maybe Anthony Rizzo. Rizzo is a free agent right now. You can pop him in as a DH. You could probably throw him maybe a couple mil just to have a 1-year deal. And he could play first base. Now, obviously, it comes as a conflict because you have Yandy Diaz, but Yandy Diaz's name has been brought up in trades. So, if they were going to try and bring in some power, which they highly need in this offense, you could bring in a guy like Anthony Rizzo. Danny Jensen, if I agree with you. If this was a couple of years ago, I'd be over the moon for this. But it's just the Rays and catchers are almost like, if you've ever seen Spinal Tap, where Spinal Tap goes through drummers because they all seem to die, and it's just a revolving door of drummers. And that's what the Rays are. They just have a revolving door of catchers that they seem to bring in. They haven't had one that's been there for a while, since I think the Deanna Navarro days or the Molina days. They really haven't had in
the one Zanino season.
Yeah, they really haven't had that catcher. And Danny Jensen, to me, is, look, if you can get him back to where he was a couple of years ago, I'm all for it. The Rays have done that before with guys where they've brought him back up to the numbers they've had in previous years. So I like the signing. I think maybe they kind of overpaid just a little bit. I think it was, $8 million?
$8.5 million.
Yeah, with some incentives on that.
And there's a mutual option for another year.
So, hey, I think it's a good deal. Overpaid a little bit. But I think having a guy like him, who is a veteran catcher, who we've seen production from him before, that's good for not only the rotation, but also for the lineup as well. I want to see more out of this. I want to see more out of the Rays going out and maybe spending a little bit of money on position players. But I think the focus now is what the hell is going to be done with the stadium. We're back to votes again. The county commission did vote 4-3. Bonds were approved again. Now we're back to a vote again. So, do you think this time it's going to get approved again? Do you? I know this whole back and forth with the Rays and the city council has been just kind of a drama filled. Whose wiener is bigger? Who's calling the bluff? Whose poker face are we going to believe or not believe? It's just get it done. Right. Already. God. Do you think it's just going to go through the vote again and they're going to pass it and then we're going to be, hey, we're going to build a stadium? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that they will pass it in the county commission so that it's on the Rays to end the deal if anyone ends it. So it'll be, because then I believe, with my understanding of the legalese, if the Rays are the ones to call it quits, then the team, or Stu Sternberg, I should say, can't profit from the land redevelopment.
Which, he wants to do.
Right. So, again, I think you described it pretty perfectly. It's politics and who's going to blink first. And it's a game of chicken. And who knows, maybe it'll work out to where no one wants to let the other side win. So the stadium goes through and the winners are the fans. Yep. I have reached a point, and this may not be good podcast content, but I have reached a point where I am so exhausted from it all, from really just the years.
No, Drew, I think we all have the right to be exhausted and to be like, why are we still talking about this? Ever since, I think it's over 15 years. We've gone through the Sister Shitty plan. We've gone through the Ebor development plan. We've gone through so many back and forth about what they're doing. It's like, look, we're done as fans. We're exhausted and tired of it. Just get it done. And I said this too on this podcast last night. I was like, I'm at the point where if you get it done, okay. If they move, you did it to yourselves. You did it to yourselves, where you couldn't come to an agreement about where they were going to build a stadium. And Stu sold the team, which he's probably going to do anyways. And the new ownership was probably going to, relocate into Nashville or North Carolina or wherever. But we're all to the point collectively as Rays fans, and maybe Rays fans can chime on this as well in the comments. We're just kind of over it, man. We're just kind of done talking about it because we just want to get some resolution and get it done. And, this whole back and forth happened when the Rays decided to, hey, we're going to play next year in Tampa at Steinbrenner Field. And the city council was like, why would you do that to us? Why would you
betray us and go there for a year and play into a site that's only half an hour away from St. It's like, guys, come on. What are we doing here? Stop being petty political people and just let them go in Tampa for a year and play at a spot for a year. It's so stupid. It's so stupid.
Yeah. I am exhausted from the discourse.
Yes.
I mean, I was already exhausted, whenever, really more so from like a defensive perspective. So people bring up a stadium, especially outside fan bases. I would get defensive over the fans, the Rays don't have fans. I would get defensive and use energy to defend the team, defend the fans. And it's like, all right, once I get the stadium done, a new stadium, it'll be fine. And so it just felt like it was building up so long. You're right. We've been through so many different versions of this. And then it finally gets across the finish line earlier in the year. And it's like, oh, finally, we can breathe. Sigh of relief. This doesn't have to be a thing looming over our shoulders anymore. And I just kind of exhaled. And now that it's all backtracked because of, these hurricanes, and we're on now, it's like this is like the greatest chance they might have to leave the area, and all this politics that's happening. It's just exhausting from a fan perspective to like, I can't drum up the energy to get passionate one way or another. Obviously I want them to stay, even though I'm not in the area anymore. I want them to stay in Tampa.
Right.
But I can't get caught up in it anymore. So, right. Like you just said, if they stay, that is awesome. I will plan to be there opening day at the new stadium. I will be there periodically throughout the seasons to support, be at the games. I will make that a priority for my Rays fandom. If they leave, it'll be really sad. They've given me a lot of great memories in the Tampa area, but it'll be their own fault. It'll be the fault of the owner, and it'll be the fault of the politicians. It'll be both their problem. There's fault here on both sides. So
it'll be a lose-lose. It's a lose-lose for
and
all
they get
parties.
what they pay for.
Yeah, and it's especially lose-lose for generations of baseball fans, because you have newer and newer fans coming in, and then you have this. It's like you guys are being so petty with each other. Stop looking at what your internal stuff is doing and look at the outside picture of not only the area too, but the amount of jobs you're losing by doing this. You're losing jobs by saying, okay, well, if you're not going to put it here, then we don't care. It's like, well, then you don't care about revenue coming into the city. You don't care about new jobs that are going to be created. You don't care about the new types of businesses that could be opening up in that area too when that new development happens. So just the dumb, like, politicians are the dumbest smart people in the world sometimes when it comes to things. And for this thing, and I know when it comes to, sports and politicians and politics, they don't mash very well because it's just a big, competition of who has the louder mouth. And they both have shot each other in the foot when it comes to that sort of thing. And when they just said, hey, we don't want to do this now because the Rays betrayed our trust. It's like, why? Look, we had 3 hurricanes hit this area within a month of each other, and nobody thought the Trop was going to be unplayable. It is. And the Rays had to make a decision about where they're going to play. And they didn't want to play at anywhere in Hillsborough County. They picked Pinellas because, look, it's in Tampa. That's a market that they've been wanting to get into. And let him play. Like, stop being so butthurt about it. And on the Rays side too, the Rays have been really mum about things, about what they're divulging with information, all that too, about, and the letter that they wrote. It's like, guys, you just being children for 1 second and be adults and just figure it out.
It sounds like maybe, are you faulting the politicians more? Like, if you had to pick a side, are you?
I'm not. I wouldn't pick either side because the Rays are at fault too, and the St. Pete Council is at fault as well. They're both at fault, so there's no one side to pick who's in the right, because they're both wrong. Because it was just a pissing match between both of them to see who's right and who's wrong.
Right.
And that's the worst part about it, is when you're getting into an argument like that where lots of things are at stake. It's just like, somebody has to be the bigger person here, and just either admit at fault or say, okay, you know what? This looks like a great idea to do for this area. Let's put it through to make sure it happens. And hopefully they're going to do that again. I think what the vote is in another week or so.
The 17th. So
yeah, so about a week and
Tuesday.
a half. Yeah. So it's, hopefully it comes down to where they approve it again and it just gets pushed through. But and that's that. I don't want to hear any more about it. All I want, you know what, Drew? All I want to hear now is shovels going into ground to dig. Yeah. That's all I want to hear. Other than that, I don't want to hear anything else at this point.
So if forced to pick a side for me, I blame the politicians a little bit more. Because I feel like all of this started simply because the Rays said we're going to play in Steinbrenner Field. Yeah.
Yep.
Or the Legends Field for those who've been around the block in Tampa for a while. So because of that, like that's what kind of started. I know it was the Hurricanes, but like that was kind of the initial comments we got from the county commissioner was that some of the county commissioners was that, oh, they should have played. This violates the spirit of the deal. They should have stayed in Pinellas County. I think that of all the dumb things and of all the dumb things both sides have done or said, or the actions and attitudes they've shown, that to me is number one, the dumbest. Because I just there's so many reasons why any of the other locations in Pinellas County were not nearly as good as a fit, or just not possible logistically. And Steinbrenner was the only logical solution. And anybody that can look at this situation, that is the only outcome. There's, so to me, the politicians that are saying that, to me, it's more of there's something there that it's a personal interest that they have that's force that's causing them to say, well, they should have. I'm looking out for my constituents. Well, I don't think anyone in Pinellas County is up in arms over. I mean, I don't know. Maybe citizens are, but I think anybody can look at the situation and say Steinbrenner is the only logical choice. So to me, that's the number one thing for me. That's like, I'm most frustrated about that, because it seems like that's what started the whole process of, oh, well, we got to push the bonds back, blah, blah, blah. We're not sure. We got to get these new people in. I don't know. But I do think the Rays, I think they are also seeing this as an opportunity, and I think they're being kind of skeevy, if you will, kind of slimy, and seeing an opportunity to potentially get more for their side, for their own interests in their pockets, and at the expense of potentially blowing this whole thing up. And I think that's also wrong. So I would blame both sides. For me, it's like, I just think for it to have come down to the fact that they're going to play in Tampa is just a dumb reason, considering they didn't really have a choice, and it wasn't something they created on their own. They were forced to by the Hurricanes. Like just but
it's not like they said, "Hey, sorry guys, we've got to go to Tampa." It's like they had a reason to. It's like, it's not like it was it's so stupid.
So I know. Stupid. So then I come back to the fact, I honestly, I almost don't even care. I'm just going to embrace the season for what it is now. And I'm disappointed, because I thought 2025 I talked about a bunch during the season, during this past season on our podcast, was that it felt like everything was always uphill for the Rays in 24. The Wander stuff, it just, coming off 2023 where they got such a great start and everything kind of broke their way for a long time. And then they had all the injuries. And then it was like, okay, we're seeing the repercussions of those injuries playing out last, 24, and the Wander stuff and the absence and the hole that he put on the roster. And it was like, all right, 25, we're getting everybody back. The pitchers are going to be lights out. We got Caminero up. We got these guys coming up. We're going to be in a much better position. And I thought 25 for the team was just going to be the year where it's like, kind of like 23, where things came together. Mm-hmm. And it was going to be another playoff team. And that's certainly, the roster hasn't changed to a degree where that I don't feel differently about that, but it just feels like there's so much going on behind the scenes that it's not team related, that it's just going to continue.
It's going to be a huge distraction.
Cloud.
Yeah.
What's going on the field. And so that's frustrating for me, because in my mind now it almost feels like, all right, now they got to think about payroll in a more significant way, maybe cutting more payroll than they were initially wanting to. And I don't know. So now it feels like we're pushing the timetable back to 26 where, okay, let's just see what we got for 25 and then retool and really make a run for it in 26. So I don't know. But I'm just at this point where I'm embracing the next season. And I honestly, it's not that I don't care about the stadium stuff. I don't want to put the energy forth into really caring about it. Selfishly, as somebody who's not in the area and I'm in the upstate in South Carolina, right? I'm in Greenville, like, hey, if just to be honest, like if they end up leaving Tampa, that would make me the most sad. But if they end up going to a market like Charlotte, I mean, selfishly, that's an hour and a half away from me. I'm not going to pretend to be upset about, like, I'm going to be pumped. I'm going to, and I'm not one of those people that I've heard other podcasters say this and I understand, I get it. Like if the team leaves, especially if I was still in the area, I would probably have a tougher time with it. But like, would you continue to root for the team? For me being out,
that's a tough one for me.
That's tough. And I get it. Like I
have Atlanta Braves stuff just waiting to be ordered on Fanatics.
Yeah.
I'm just,
you want the Marlins, man? Peter Bendix. You're a Bendix guy. I just, for me, it's like, all right, the way I consume the team right now is I watch them on MLB TV every night. So if they leave, from my vantage point, from my perspective, it's not really changing that much, right? Like I'm still just going to watch them. And all of a sudden I just have a closet full of throwback gear.
True.
So I don't know. So I'm just kind of becoming more, what's the term?
Don't care.
Yeah. Like apathetic, disenfranchised from like really getting involved with the stadium stuff. They're going to figure it out one way or another. I'm sure I'll find myself being ticked at one party or both parties, and I'm hopeful that they get the stadium because I want it to be in Tampa or, in the Tampa Bay area. I don't really care where.
Hopefully this will happen.
Yeah, that would be great. Like
Hopefully this will happen.
I'm a big outfield guy, so I love seeing that rendering. And I think about myself out in left field, and that looks like a fun place to be at a game. So I'm really hopeful. I think that they end up passing it to the county and then put the onus on the Rays to make the next move, which would be interesting to see play out. But yeah, just same old. I'm ready to watch, Taylor Walls and, bat 200 and, Danny Jensen knocking homers. I am excited to see the team in the shorter dimensions.
It's going to be very. I've never been to Steinbrenner Field, so it's going to be interesting to go see them live.
I went like when I was a kid, I think, for a spring training game, and I don't really know much about it.
I've walked past it many times going to Raymond James for a Bucks game, and always thought that park looked pretty nice. So it's going to be a more intimate feel, which is kind of cool. I mean, you're going to be right up on them and everything.
Yeah. Ironically, it's kind of what the Rays have always wanted.
Yeah.
And it's going to be
11,000 seats.
Yeah. And, really, it's going to be, what was average attendance, like 15 or 16 this year?
Like around that, yeah.
And given the closer proximity of so many more people, even on the bad nights, on a Tuesday night against the Athletics or something like that, I really think that they're going to sell out. I don't want to say that necessarily it would be 100%, but like it's going to be full most nights, which honestly, like I hope, and I know we're kind of turning into some keep talking about the same, but like I just hope that it becomes an advantage. Like I feel like there's an opportunity there for it to be, because it's an intimate crowd, smaller, like it could be, I feel like when a stadium is packed, even if it's a smaller stadium, it still feels loud. Like it can be an environment, and maybe it's a little different in a baseball stadium, but like in my high school gym when we played basketball, and if we had a packed house for a game because we're playing a rival, like it made a difference, even though there was like 400 people there. It just, I think it could be something for the team to rally around, and I hope that the fans step up. I mean, I hope that people step up in the area to go, and it becomes like, hey, we're making the best of a bad situation. And yeah, we're playing in a random field in Tampa, a minor league stadium, but like we have like almost a home field advantage because of the way the stadium's set up and because of the intimacy and the amount of people that are there every game.
Only bad part about it is they're going to be on the road more than they are going to be at home because of weather and all that too.
Well, during the in the latter half,
the summer months.
Yeah, which is I understand they got to. I mean, really, it was just changing the 2 series, right? So it's not it's not a huge shift, but I mean, I get that they probably would have done more if they could have, but obviously there was only those 2 series that made sense. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to be in town the end of March for my son's first birthday. We're going to be down there with some family back in Lakeland, and so I'm hopeful that we can get. I don't know how many season ticket holders there are. I know they'll get the first pass at tickets. I hope that there are tickets available for opening day because I would love to go.
I don't think they've released anything yet for prices or anything like that.
No, I'm all set up on the list and the emails, so we'll see.
I did get on the list for Savannah Bananas. So
where are they? Because they were good.
Raymond James.
Raymond James.
Raymond James. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. So tickets go on sale tomorrow for Savannah Bananas.
Those are expensive too, man.
No.
Oh, really?
No.
We tried looking into tickets for our kids and stuff, and it was going to be.
No, actually, the ticket prices aren't that bad for like first level. Like it's like $60. It goes 60, 40, 20. That's not bad at all. Not bad at all.
That's not bad.
All right, we'll end the show on one final note. Juan Soto got a gargantuan type of contract last night. He picked the New York Mets.
Go Mets.
15 years, $765 million, saying no to I think it was a
760 or 750.
15. I think it was a 760 deal from the Yankees last night.
Oh, I thought they added. I thought it was an extra year, so the AAV would have been a little bit lower. But
so Juan Soto gets out of the AL East, goes to the New York Mets on a huge contract. Huge long-term contracts like this are always a gamble. We've seen that before with superstars. The Mets are the Mets. So congrats to the Mets, Steve Cohen pulling that off. You get a superstar in Juan Soto, but to me, I think this might just be another disaster for the Mets waiting to happen. But
I mean,
he's out of the division. That's all I care.
Oh man. Well, I think you see that with any long-term deal. Like there's always eventually he's going to, now he can opt out after 5 years. So
that's true. They did put the opt-out clause.
I mean, honestly, I would kind of like that if I was a Mets fan, because like somebody like Bryce Harper, that's cool that he didn't have an opt-out in his contract with the Phillies, like commitment, all the things, whatever. I think that's great. On the other side, I think it's kind of good for Mets fans that he did that, because let's say 5 years, like, these next 5 years, he crushes it. He's MVP a couple times. They maybe win a World Series or two. I don't, they're not better.
So it's a win-win. It's a win-win.
Like you're getting the prime years of Juan Soto for 5 years, and obviously you're able to pay the money. And then he decides, you know what, I'm going to go and get another contract. Well, okay, now, hey, we got 5 years of his prime without having him weighing down our team the latter part of that contract, and we got all these great things now. I don't know how it's going to play out, but eventually if this contract stays and he goes the whole, timetable of it or whatever, and doesn't opt out, eventually he's going to weigh down
the Mets,
the Mets. I mean, and obviously money like $50 million in 10 years for, 10 years from now, and for a player for a season probably won't look as crazy. It's just how sports and money work, right? Like salaries keep going up, but eventually it will weigh them down if he stays there for the entirety of the contract. But as you said, like all I cared about is that he's no longer on the Yankees and the AL East. I mean, when you're seeing, of his 5 finalists, 3 of the teams are in your division, you're just hoping that it doesn't work out that way, and that he goes on the other coast or in another league. And thankfully he went to the Mets, because now immediately it makes the Yankees a much worse team, because the Yankees without Juan Soto, their lineup is honestly doesn't, like Jazz Chisholm, none of those guys really scare me. And the Rays have always handled those guys in the lineup really well. Juan Soto was the guy that just gave them and everybody trouble. And it just made their lineup feel so much deeper and difficult to navigate. And so from a competition perspective, I think it makes the Yankees, I mean, they are a much worse team today than they were yesterday, or before.
They have a huge gap in that lineup to fill now.
Now they're going to go out. I am sure they will go out, and they're going to go out and probably get a pitcher, Max Fried, Corbin Burns, somebody like that, or make a trade. They're, maybe a Santander for the lineup, which I think Santander is a really good hitter. That would scare me a little bit, but especially in Yankee Stadium. But no one's as good as Juan Soto. So the Yankees are not going to be as good as they were last year, which I'm all for. And I'm glad that we don't have to worry about Juan Soto in the AL East anymore. And we only have to see him 3 times a year, 2 to 3 times a year. So, yeah, good for the Mets. And, that's the NL East's problem now. So we'll see. I heard the Rays did offer Juan Soto $800 million over 80 years. So,
and a piece of the new stadium too.
And a piece of the new stadium, yeah. So we were going to actually name it after him if he accepted. So it's a shame he didn't take the 1 million a year for 80 years. But
such a shame.
Hey, real quick, anybody get traded this week from the Rays? Rapid fire. We got Yandy Diaz, Brandon Lau, Springs, Zach Littell, Pete Fairbanks. We got those 5 guys.
Anybody get traded this week?
Yeah, what do you think? Over, under, or let's just say, does anyone get traded from the Rays active roster this week?
No.
Okay.
No.
I think Yandy does.
Okay.
Yandy or a pitcher.
I was gonna say, if anybody does get traded, it'll be Springs probably, or Latrell.
I hope Littell gets traded.
Zach Littell, yeah.
Danny Jensen's going to could potentially be our highest paid player if all the trades work out.
So. No, because Lau's making 10.
I know. I'm just saying if they trade, Brandon's getting thrown around a little bit. But
that's true.
I think they've always viewed him as too valuable for what he provides from a left side of the plate. So we'll see. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure the names will come up.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us for another edition of the Rays Rewind podcast, the sickest Tampa Bay Rays podcast on the Sick Podcast Network. Make sure to go to our YouTube page at the Sick Podcast, Rays Rewind. Hit that subscribe and notification bell when new episodes will be dropping. And they're going to be dropping more frequently because I have more free time on my hands. So we'll see you guys next time on the Rays Rewind podcast. See you.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Rays Rewind with El Bushman and Drew on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.